Representative Hansen, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
You're serving your 7th term, and as one of the senior DFL House members, what issues do you feel need to be addressed in 2018 that may not have been addressed last session?
Well, what I've been working a lot on, and I think the legislature will be focused on this coming session, is the MNLARS licensing system for car registrations, titles, and ultimately Real ID. We've had discussions about Real ID for the last several years. I've been involved in those, and I'm now the lead Democrat on the technology committee that Representative Baker has. So I have been coming in here to the office all fall working on MNLARS issues, and we've had several committee meetings. And I expect that that will be something where actually we'll get some bipartisan effort probably on helping out the deputy registrars who do the licensing and trying to make sure that Real ID works.
And tell us a little bit about your district, 52A. What are some of the things you're hearing from people?
Well, I have just on the MNLARS system, I have a large a deputy registrar in South St. Paul that does a lot of work for the dealers along 110, the auto dealers. So you've got along that West St. Paul, South St. Paul, Inver Grove border a lot of car dealers, and so the deputy registrar works with them. So I've been hearing a lot. I've been stopping in at the deputy registrar's office to see how things are going and trying to bring the commissioners and the folks who work with us there. I've been hearing a lot about titles and registration from the district. My district is South St. Paul, kind of the northern part of South St. Paul, all of West St. Paul, northern Mendota Heights, and then Mendota and Lilydale. And tonight I'm going to the Mendota City Council, the little town of Mendota. So I'll find out what's on their agenda for the year. And so you have these formal things, and then you have people stopping you at the gas station saying, what about my car title? You know, that's important. Because of my work in the environment, I get people asking about pollinators, clean water, and then tonight we also have a Volkswagen settlement public meeting in the district. So I'll hear from people and see folks at that.
And that's where I wanted to go next. You're from South St. Paul. How does someone who represents an area just a few miles from the capital get so involved and engaged in environmental issues?
Well, I didn't grow up in South St. Paul, so I grew up on a farm in Freeborn County, and my mom was from Fillmore County, and so I grew up in a very small town agricultural area and went to school in Iowa. My bachelor's is in biology from a little college at Upper Iowa University in northeastern Iowa. And my master's is in soil management from Iowa State. So there's not too many legislators who have a soil management background. And then before I was elected to the Dakota County Soil and Water Conservation District Board. I served there for 8 years. I also worked at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture with pesticide applicator regulations. So I have a background both in agriculture and in environment, and at the legislature, it's important to have content knowledge. And I think when you can come to the table with experience and knowledge in a topic area, it's very important as we move into this debate, particularly when there's a lot of science involved.
And what are some of the environmental challenges our state faces?
I think water is always an issue in Minnesota when we're the land of 10,000 lakes, not just lakes, rivers, and streams, but also groundwater and drinking water. I think those issues are going to be with us our whole lifetime. I think that there are challenges now because of climate change in terms of our changing environment, more rapid, intense rainfalls, greater quantities. Just look at, whether we have snow or not, we have these bounces in temperature. So how our climate is changing affects our weather and affects our farming, it affects our tourism, it affects our transportation budgets. Environment affects everything, and we all drink water, we all eat food, so those issues are not going to go away. I think how we deal with those and the pieces that are there with changing climate, we're going to be grappling with, and then there are subsets of that, like invasive species that are both aquatic and terrestrial, water quality and water quantity. You know, there's going to be some areas of the state where finding clean water or finding water period is going to be harder. So those have been increasing in interest, but they're always going to be there for Minnesota.
You talked about growing up on a farm, but you actually do still do some farming.
Right. I'm a suburban member that has a lot of involvement in agriculture. So my brother farms in Freeborn County, and I'm actively engaged in farming with him. And then my mother grew up in Fillmore County by Harmony, and so I own land there, and that I have a lot of conservation acres trying to help out with pollinators and wildlife and water quality.
That gives you kind of a unique perspective, right, when it comes to mixing agricultural and environmental issues.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier about content expertise, but I think you also have to practice what you preach. If you're talking about protecting water quality or pollinators or enhancing wildlife, and you have the opportunity where you have land, then you need to implement those practices as well on your own. And so having that knowledge of doing the conservation, I think is very valuable. So it's not theoretical, it's practical, and having practical knowledge is real important here.
And before we wrap up here, I wanted to ask you about this. In September, you were honored with the Pollinator Hero Award at the annual Pollination Festival. Why are you so involved in working to make municipalities and school districts pollinator-friendly hubs?
Well, I hear from my constituents. Even a suburban district, there's a lot of interest in food production, but I think people get not just honeybees, but native pollinators, not just monarchs, but all the butterflies and moths. Individual citizens get that. They get the importance that we are part of a web of life, that we are part of this planet. We don't have dominion over it. We have responsibility and stewardship over it. So I hear from constituents. I have the knowledge, having worked in the Department of Agriculture where I used to work with pesticide applicator licensing and training. So I think I'm uniquely positioned to work on that and to try to bring diverse groups of people together. So I have my constituents within the district, but also I have familiarity around the state from when I used to go around and do pesticide applicator training everywhere in the state. So having that ability, I think I have a responsibility to work on that. So I've got, the Pollinator Hero Award there. That's a nice recognition. I'm glad that people are watching, and I hope they'll join us in trying to work on these issues.